Hey everyone, I am MSK, aka Master Swag King, coming at you guys today with another video. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about Gen G as they just lost their quarterfinals matchup against BLG at the 2023 League of Legends World Championship. It seems to be the same song and dance with Gen G at the League of Legends World Championships. You can even look as far back as the 2018 League of Legends World Championship, where they bombed out of the group stage, losing to the likes of Team Vitality and Cloud9 as well. Now, in 2019, they did not qualify for the World Championship, but even if you look at the 2020 League of Legends World Championship, they even lost 3-0 to G2 Esports during the quarterfinals matchup they had against them. Now, to be fair, that was also against one of the best Western teams of all time, and a lot of people thought, given Gen G's playstyle going up against that specific G2 roster's playstyle, that would actually result in a G2 victory, myself included. I have the pick'ems on the Cloud9 podcast from that year to show you I did pick G2 winning against Gen G during that quarterfinals matchup. But then in 2021, they actually did very well at the 2021 League of Legends World Championship with the roster of Rascal, Clid, BDD, Ruler, and Life. And given the moment at that current time, BDD was playing really well, and they were one game away from beating EDG to actually qualify for the finals of the 2021 League of Legends World Championship. And then after they lost to EDG in a nail-biting 3-2 best-of-5 series, they end up going into 2022 and bringing back the players they've had before, such as Peanut, who was on their roster a long time ago. And I initially did not like the idea of that, but the success of Peanut later on came during the year when Gen G, this is a fun fact for a lot of you guys, since I've been following this org for a very, very long time. They are the organization that I root for in the LCK, because the previous organization that, you know, where the spot they bought it from was Samsung Galaxy. So they obviously bought Samsung Galaxy spot, and then in their initial, you know, LCK 2018 spring split, they weren't even called Gen G. They were actually called KSV. They renamed to Gen G during the LCK 2018 summer split, actually. So that's how long I've been a Samsung Galaxy, you know, Gen G fan, actually. So in 2022, the LCK spring split, they actually brought over Peanut and Chovy. They actually chose to get rid of BDD and bring over Chovy, who at the time, if I remember, was on Hanwha Life Esports, actually, where it was basically just a 1v5 every game for Chovy. So they had Doran, Peanut, Chovy, Ruler, and Lehens, actually. Now, keep in mind, Lehens and Doran had played with Chovy before on that really legendary Griffin roster who managed to constantly choke. But Gen G also just won their first ever LCK title last year in summer, actually. You know, they had faced a T1 in the LCK 2022 spring split finals where they lost 3-1, but then they beat T1 in the LCK 2022 summer split 3-0, actually. A lot of people had them as the favorites going into the 2022 League of Legends World Championship with the likes of rosters such as JDG and T1 themselves. They narrowly actually defeated Damwon during the League of Legends World Championship 2022 quarterfinals. Actually, it was a very close series, and then they actually got upset by the eventual League of Legends 2022 World Championship winners, DRX. Now, even in the group stage of Worlds 2022, they didn't look as dominant against like the other Asian oppositions, but you still kind of thought, oh, this is going to be a strong team, only for them to struggle really hard against Damwon in the quarterfinals, and then they got upset by DRX, actually. So they ended up getting rid of Lehens, actually, and Ruler ended up going to JDG. Lehens, as you guys know right now, he's on KT Rolster. So they brought over Delight, who was actually on Fredit Breon, and they brought up Pace from their academy team, if I'm not too mistaken about that. So during the LCK 2023 spring split, they actually were a really dominant roster, but obviously, T1 was the best team in the regular season, and then later on, they managed to win the LCK 2023 spring split. This was their first ever MSI qualification as well. And then after that, as you guys saw, you looked at like Gen.G's performance against like the Western teams, and yeah, they dominated the Western teams as they should. But when it came to facing teams such as T1, they lost to T1 in a nail-biting close best-of-5 series, and then they ended up having to face off against BLG, and they ended up losing to BLG as well. So they lost to T1, a team they'd faced pretty much half the year at that point, lost to them. And then they also, ended up losing to BLG as well. So coming in to the LCK 2023 summer split, most people had them pegged to actually win the split again, which ended up happening against their longtime nemesis T1. So it's been a back-to-back-to-back-to-back LCK finals of Gen.G versus T1 ever since 2022, LCK spring. So coming into the League of Legends World Championship 2023, a lot of people also had Gen.G as a front runner to win the tournament, along with other, teams such as JDG, LNG, T1, and BLG as well. They were top 4, or at least top 2 in most people's predictions. Now, they just lost last night against BLG as well. Remember, that was a rematch of the MSI 2023 playoffs matchup as well. Now, at MSI, they lost to BLG 3-0. But in this matchup, they lost 3-2. And even though they lost 3-2, throughout the series, it was really, really, really BLG favored. I mean, even in the games that they won, it was still also heavily BLG favored. Now, this is also, which is what comes with the territory of having players like Chovy. I think Chovy is absolutely amazing, talented player, but it always feels like when it comes to these very high pressure situations internationally, he just fails constantly. Now, it used to be the thing where he would fail internationally as well as failing domestically. So he stopped failing domestically, but he still fails internationally. And I think that's still why Faker is still regarded over him as a better player, because that is what matters in the grand scheme of things, is actually winning in clutch fashions. But Faker's had his own issues with not winning finals, both domestically and internationally as well. But throughout history, and we're talking about League of Legends, more people will talk about Faker's dominance over Chovy's. They'll just kind of consider Chovy as the best, like, what if player, like, what if he won all this stuff. And, players like Peanut do have their strengths, right? Peanut has his strengths. I think Peanut is a solid player, but when Peanut is matched up against a player that's not only better than him mechanically, like we saw last year with Canyon, and like we just saw last night, if you're at the time of recording this video, last night was their BLG quarterfinal series against players like Zun, he just gets completely gapped, Then players like Doran can look very good at certain moments, but there are certain moments where he's literally just not impactful at all and has a very suspect laning phase. And people must understand this from the LPL and the LCK, China and Korea's respective mindsets when it comes to their League of Legends teams. If they're at Worlds and they do not play very well and they arguably, finish second place or they win the event, depending on how it goes, depending on the run, their rosters are getting retooled and revamped. It's either you win for these guys or you don't. The mindset is much more different and much more firm and much more, I would say strict, but it also blends in to their culture about how they work and everything to form the best players, actually. And when you're on a roster such as Gen.G's and you have all this talent at your disposal, arguably Doran's probably your weakest player, you're expected to either get to the finals, have a nail-biting series against JDG, and win. Same with last year. They were supposed to get to the finals and face T1 as well, but that did not happen as well. And this seems to be, like I mentioned before, at the beginning part of the video with Gen.G. It feels like it's just the same song and dance every single time at the World Championship. It even happened at MSI 2023 earlier this year. So when you have this article coming out from .esports expecting like Gen.G roster turnover, that doesn't surprise me. I think to fix Gen G's issues, it would have to be meta adaptability. I think that's been their biggest problem, and I think playstyle amongst the LPL teams is their biggest problem as well. They play this like really weird defensive offensive playstyle against the LPL teams, but anyone that's not like the LPL teams against like LCK teams or like LEC teams or LCS teams, they have a really aggressive playstyle. It seems like they kind of just revert back into this like weird defensive playstyle against LPL teams. And to be fair, people must also keep this in context as well. BLG is predicted to be one of the best teams in the world. So yeah, losing to BLG is not as bad when you really look at it, because they are a really, really good team. But you must also keep in mind, Gen G is also under that same level of scrutiny when it comes to expectations. And then when you lose to a team just as good as, BLG, even though that is probably expected in most cases, both teams going back and forth, both of them have their strengths and weaknesses, it's still not good enough just to lose in this fashion. They're expected to make a deep run at the World Championship with players of this caliber on their roster. So the article goes as follows. Gen G players expect roster turnover following abrupt League of Legends Worlds 2023 exit. Immense hype into immense disappointment. After a stunning elimination at the 2023 League of Legends World Championship, Gen G's starting roster might be heading for an overhaul this coming offseason. So this is another thing that comes with a lot of these roster overhauls is, honestly, if you're asking me, I think the bot lane is perfectly fine. I think the bot lane is fine. I think you want to keep your bot lane because when you're making roster changes, you must also keep in mind that you have to get players that you want for your specific playstyle. And if you're trying to upgrade to a player's position, are you getting an upgrade of a player? Or in the short term, it's going to be a downgrade, but later on will be an upgrade. I think they should just retool their top side. I think Peanuts had more than enough chances on Gen G to prove himself. I mean, he was on Gen G before, and he failed constantly. And then he did come back to Gen G and win them domestic titles, but internationally, it hasn't been there for him. Doran has been pretty suspect for a while. He can have really great pop-off moments, but it's not consistent enough. In an interview with Dexterito's Carver Fisher, Gen G top laner Doran explained the organization was expecting some roster changes in November, and that although he didn't know which players would be joining the lineup, they would still remain a top-tier squad in the LCK. Yeah, because if you are on an organization like Gen G, the owner, I think his name is Arnold, he's gonna want the best players, or players that are gonna be able to, potentially contend at the World Championship and bring home the Summoners Cup. This surprising turn of events came right after Gen G's massive playoff loss to China's Bilibili Gaming, aka BLG. Gen G were slated to be heavy favorites for the Summoners Cup over the course of 2023. Gen G were a force to be reckoned with in their own region, winning back-to-back LCK championships. At the mid-season invitational, Gen G struggled to make a mark after suffering another early exit from a familiar face, Bilibili Gaming. Doran lamented how Worlds ended and said that he wanted to use that loss at MSI as a stepping stone and show his improvement at Worlds. Unfortunately for him and his team, those demons came back to haunt them on the international stage once more. And I think that also was in partly due to the fact of, draft preparation, not adapting to the meta properly during that series. I mean, the picks and bans were pretty suspect, and they were not a glass pick they let always go through. I mean, if Jun is performing that well on Jarvan, you literally just have to ban it away from him. And the fact that Yagao got Orianna that many times in a series, given how strong Orianna is on this patch, is disgusting. Sorry, I read that. Sorry about that. With a stacked roster featuring other superstar players such as veteran jungler Peanut, rookie ADC sensation Pays, and legendary mid laner Chovy, not many fans know where Gen G could improve in terms of pure firepower. The team has plenty of talent at its disposal, but its ability to show up on the big stage has yet to be seen. While Gen G licks its wounds and regroups, the rest of the competition at Worlds rages onward. All 4 of China's representatives remain in the tournament, while Korea's only has 2 teams left, standing as the event continues on Saturday. KT Roaster versus JDG. And yeah, there's a very big possibility it could just be an all LPL semifinals at Worlds 2023. Now, to be fair, I know people said, well, it's kind of boring. It's just going to be all China. Well, you'll be watching some really, really good teams go at each other. So that's a dumb position to have. Second of all, just last year, it was 3 LCK teams and JDG just in top 4. And in 2021, it's the same thing for the most part. I mean, let's be honest here. China and Korea teams are just the best at League of Legends, right? There's going to be some variance in that itself, but people got to understand, like, they win for a reason. Like, Western teams are just bad, and that's just what it is. Now, not to get into all that in this video, that's going to be the biggest problem is, where do you really improve? I would say just get rid of, Doran and Peanut, but who's going to be the replacements you need for the team? I mean, we've heard time and time again that Peanut is the shot caller for Gen G. I mean, do you start levying those expectations to another player? Because if you get someone that's not as good as a shot caller as him, then you also are at risk of other issues coming on to your future team in 2024. So yeah, what do you guys think about Gen G losing to BLG? Who's the players you guys would actually say that they should get rid of? My picks, Doran and Peanut, but then again, that might also come with its fair share of issues as well. So I'll see you guys later. Like, comment, and subscribe. Most of all, enjoy. I am MSK, and I'm Master Swag King, and I'm signing out, guys. See you guys later. Deuces. Peace.